Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Your Family Lawyer. It is I, your sincerely, all right, Egbe, your family and divorce lawyer, and also a counseling psychologist. I want to say a very big thank you for joining me on to this episode because what I plan doing for the next week would be to explain some of the sections of the Marriage Act that governs marriage in Nigeria so that you can understand it. I've had people ask me several questions about what does the law say? How am I supposed to do this? Is this proper? Is this the best way to go about this? Do not worry if you follow me every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on this particular platform. I'll be sharing with you different information and educating you on family law in Nigeria. In case you do not know, family law is very, very wide. So it covers a lot of things and not just divorce and custody that many people know it to be, right? So what I try to do regularly on your family lawyer is to see as much as possible as I can educate you and help you understand Nigerian family law and understand it better if you already do. What I share here is not professional advice, it's not legal advice. It's just for education and orientation purposes. So do not take this as legal advice, do not take it as professional advice. If you need any of that, you may want to contact a lawyer who is close to you or use the details of this particular episode to chat with me. And I hope you get to enjoy the tips that I share here and they will be valuable. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier on, that what you get to share is everything regarding family law. So it's family law, and family law covers marriage, it covers divorce, it covers custody, it covers family property, it covers wills, it covers a whole lot of things. And hopefully, by the end of today's episode and many other episodes that you will catch up with, you'll be able to learn something significant and you'll be able to learn something new as important about Nigeria family law. So, in case you have one or two friends that you may want to call around, you may want to invite them to join you to learn what I'm sharing today, I want to share the link with them. So share the link to this particular episode with them so they get to learn what you're learning. Remember, it is not professional advice, it is not legal advice, it is just for education and also as a form of orientation, right? So let's go straight to talking about what is it that the family law says and how the family law applies in Nigeria. It is very critical, it is important that you understand this because of course I said that this series we are doing right now a series on the Marriage Act of Nigeria, and after we are done with the series of the Marriage Act, we consider the Matrimonial Causes Act, we consider the Matrimonial Causes Rules, then we'll consider the Child's Rights Act, we'll consider the other laws, the Violence Against People Prohibition Act, and other laws that affect family life generally, right? But this series, right now, we are focusing primarily on the Marriage Act. And in case you do not know how old is the Marriage Act, it is a very, very old law. It is as old as the amalgamation of Nigeria. The Marriage Act is about was came into force in 1914. Of course, we borrowed it from the UK, and it's also applicable in Nigeria. But if you want to refer to it, you want to reference it appropriately in Nigeria, you want to call it Marriage Act Cap M6 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 20 2004. Oh, sorry, we're in 2025. It's not 2020 something. It is actually the Laws of the Federation M M6 Laws of the Federation 2004. But the Marriage Act itself is as old as Nigeria because the amalgamation of Nigeria happened in the year 1914, and also that was when the Marriage Act came into force and came into force in Nigeria. So we have been using it. It's borders on a lot of things, including who can marry in Nigeria, where and how you can marry, the rights, duties, obligations of spouses in a marriage. It also provides for penalty for offenses, penalty for bigamy, penalty for fraudulent declarations. It comes with different things to help you understand statutory marriage, right? To help you understand that statutory marriage. However, the major thing you need to understand is that although I'm doing a series on the Marriage Act, it is important that you understand that in Nigeria we have different types of marriages. Yes, so we have different types of marriages. Primarily, we have two types of marriages. So we have the marriage that is monogamous and we have the one that is not monogamous. Now, monogamous means that the marriage is between one man and one woman. Of course, we have a law in Nigeria that forbids same sex marriages. So the marriage we are talking about are obviously um, heterosexual relationship, right? So we have monogamous marriages, and that's the marriage between one man and one woman, and we also have polygamous marriages. If you understand this division and you understand how this work, it will help you understand things a whole lot better. So you want to be sure, you want to be certain that you are choosing the right type of marriage for yourself. You are choosing the type of marriage that suits you best. You are choosing the marriage that suits what you want best. So, for when it comes to the type of marriage, I have made mention that we have two different types. The first one be the um, monogamous marriage, and the second one be. So I'll go and try to do a breakdown for you to understand the difference between a monogamous marriage and a polygamous marriage. So a monogamous marriage is a marriage in which a person can marry only one spouse, and a polygamous marriage, in the context of Nigeria, is a situation where the Nigerian, this time a man, can marry one wife or more than one wife. But let's say it, a monogamous marriage is a marriage where you have only two people, a husband and a wife, and a polygamous marriage is a marriage where you have one husband and multiple wives, right? If you have an understanding of this, you are able to get a good picture of this, then things will be easy. It will be easy for you to understand what is it that I'm trying to say. Now, generally, we under the monogamous marriage, we have the statutory marriage. So statutory marriage just simply means a marriage that is based on the Marriage Act. Why is it based on the Marriage Act? How come it is based on the Marriage Act? I was trying to explain to you earlier on what the Marriage Act actually says, and the Marriage Act focuses on monogamous marriage. So the Marriage Act is only on monogamous marriage. You can only marry one wife. In fact, for lawyers and people generally, we believe that the Marriage Act is actually biased towards the Christian religion. And why are we going to say this? Is because the Marriage Act was borrowed from the UK, that is that have a lot of their culture and their tradition founded on Christian principles and Christian beliefs, dating back to the Roman Catholic Church and also dating back to the Church of England, the Anglican Communion, right? So we have monogamous marriages that are regulated, that is regulated by the Marriage Act. So that law is the one that states whether a marriage is valid or it's not valid, how you should do the marriage, who can marry each other, where you can do the marriage, what time of the day you can do the marriage. But all these counts, all these are very important, right? Then, of course, we go to polygamous marriages, and in polygamous marriages, we have two types of marriages in Nigeria. We have two types of polygamous marriages recognized by the law. So the first type is every marriage that is in line with the various tribes, with various customs and traditions of the different tribes of Nigeria, right? So generally, we just call it customary marriage. So once a marriage is based on a particular custom, is based on a particular culture, a people's way of doing life, we call it a customary marriage, right? It's a form of polygamous marriage. Then we have Islamic marriage. Now, Islamic marriage is a marriage that is conducted or contracted based on Islamic principles. People will usually say, oh, we have three types of marriages in Nigeria. We have marriages that are based on the Marriage Act, we have customary marriage or traditional marriage, and we also have Islamic marriage. But in reality, as a family law expert, the training, the understanding, the education I have in this and on this particular subject matter that I'm sharing with you is that in Nigeria we have two broad divisions. The first being monogamous marriages, and the second being polygamous marriages. And yes, yes, there are some things that you may want to see that are different about them, right? There are different things you may need to learn, you may need to see, you need to understand about the different marriages so you know which of them you want to choose, which of them you should have, which of them will be best for you. If you do not know that, you may just end up like many people do, try to do every type of marriage. I've seen people who it's very common. I'm sure you have also seen people like that who they get to have their traditional marriage, their church wedding, and also their marriage registry. But anyway, I'm going to be focusing on the Marriage Act today, right? We're going to be focusing primarily on the Marriage Act and why we have the Marriage Act. By the time I'm done explaining to you why we have the Marriage Act and everything, perhaps you'll be able to understand some things better and be able to get some clear picture in understanding the difference between them and what the Marriage Act actually has to provide and what you can do about that to see that you don't make the wrong decision, right? Okay, now let's go back to what I was trying to say today because our focus for the next weeks, yes, for at least the next 10 weeks, for at least the next 10 weeks, will be about how will be lessons from the Marriage Act. I'll be happy you understand things from the Marriage Act. I'll be happy you see how you can get a better picture and better understanding of the Marriage Act and how it affects you, right? And how it affects you. So, if you do not mind, we'll be taking it little by little. But first, it's still the Marriage Act, and that's what we are still talking about. Now, one thing you should understand about the Marriage Act is that it has a legal framework, and there's a structure, and also there's a purpose. So, the legal framework for marriage in Nigeria under the Act is regulated by Marriage Act. Some people call it civil marriage, right? And it also creates a structure that includes the guidelines. This particular Marriage Act protects marital rights and ensures equality and establishes responsibilities. Now, we cannot joke with this because if you want to study any law, then you should know what is it that the law is talking about, what is it that governs everything regarding that law and how it operates. So, for example, I want to pick this particular book, right? It contains, if you see it here, you can see it where the Marriage Act, the Matrimonial Causes Act, it contains what else again? The Matrimonial Causes Rules, Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, the Marriage Validation Act, and some other selected cases. Of course, we have the Violence Against People Prohibition Act, we have the Child's Rights Act, other laws that get to regulate marriages in Nigeria, how marriages operate, how marriages function, that will help you understand these things. Okay, let's go straight to the next thing that I want you to understand, and that is because earlier on I was talking about the different types of marriages in Nigeria, and I mentioned that we have statutory marriage, we have the customary marriage, and we have the Islamic marriage. Now, is there a difference between them? Is there a difference between statutory marriage, which is the marriage under the Marriage Act and involves civil registration? Is it different from the customary marriage that is recognized in our ethnic groups and may not necessarily be registered? Does it what's the difference between those two? And also Islamic marriages that Islamic marriage that is governed by Islamic law and can also be registered, right? So I want to do a little breakdown step by step, and I hope you are able to follow me and understand this clearly. Right. So first, for customary marriage, we understand that customary marriage is governed by the various traditions and customs, the cultural practices of a particular people. In this case, in that of Nigeria, the customary marriage, when it comes to the marriage, the wedding ceremony, the custom of the woman is what holds sway. So for you to say you properly married a girl under customs or under tradition, to say, oh, I have a customary marriage with this particular woman or with this particular man, that marriage must, the wedding ceremony, the marriage ceremony must have held in line with the woman's culture. So the validity of your traditional marriage is actually based on the culture of the woman and not that of the man. So you should pay attention to this. Yes, after the marriage ceremony, the couple would be regulated by the culture of the man, right? The couple and their family, their marriage and their family will be regulated by the custom of the man. But however, in contracting it, when you're making that particular marriage, it is actually the culture of the woman that holds sway. It is the culture of the woman that actually determines if the marriage was valid or not valid. But the culture of the man is what holds sway in the marriage, right? So if you have this understanding and you're able to get this, you it will help you understand some things clearly, very, very clearly. Now, it is there are some few cultures in Nigeria that may extending it in the sense that there are some things in the marriage that may be regulated by the woman. For example, in the woman's culture, how do you divorce? So, if you want to divorce, it is how you divorce the woman will be based on the woman's culture and not necessarily so based on the man's culture per se, right? Yes, we understand that different states now have customary courts that get to adjudicate over customary divorce and the rest. So there's a little bit of uniformity here and there. A key element of customary law marriage in Nigeria, traditional marriage, as some people will call it, is of course for the South, we call it traditional marriage. Those in the Southwest, we call it engagement. It's common for you to hear them call it engagement, but in real sense, it is a customary marriage. One of the key things that you need to understand regarding customary marriage is that the marriage is not valid if a bride price was not paid, right? So it usually involves bride price, it usually involves the consent of both families, and it also involves certain traditional rights. So the traditional rights for marriage according to that particular community where that lady comes from will have to be followed. The bride price will have to be paid. Then there has to be family consent. No, family consent comes even first before the bride price, right? The bride price is part of the rights and traditions in making a traditional marriage. Now, the price of the bride price is also very dicey. Who pays the bride price? The groom pays the bride price, or rather, the father of the groom pays the bride price. Or if the groom is an adult of his own, he can also pay the bride price himself. Now, who collects the bride price? That's usually one of the biggest things. If bride price is actually what makes a marriage valid, a customary marriage valid, then who the person who received the bride price has to have the right to receive it. The person has to have the right to receive the bride price. Now, that's why if you're a man, you're single, and you're trying to get married right now, you should always ask yourself and ask your bride to be, ask her family, according to your tradition, who is the rightful person to collect the bride price. It will shock you to know that in many cultures and traditions in Nigeria, it is not the father of the girl that has the power to collect the bride price. I'm going to use Esan custom as a case study, more particularly those of us that come from Irua, because I'm from Irua, Egware Irua. When it comes to the bride price of the first daughter, it is the father of the head of the family, rather, the head of the family, the head of the lineage, that has the power to collect the bride price of a girl. Now, when it comes to the other daughters of the home, when it comes to the second daughter, third daughter, fourth daughter, there's no problem regarding that. The father can collect the bride price. The father can actually collect the bride price of that person, but when it comes to the bride price of the first daughter, it is the head of the family that collects it. So who collects it also determines to a large extent the validity of that marriage. And interestingly, under customary marriage, polygamy is allowed. It is a big deal. It is allowed. You can a man can choose to marry more than one wife. However, I do not know of any custom yet in Nigeria where a woman can marry more than one wife, more than one husband. I do not know yet. And the reason why I do not know yet is because I'm yet to traverse Nigeria. I have lived in only four out of the six geopolitical zones of this country. So I'm yet to still meet other places. But I do remember a particular state. If I'm not mistaken, it must be Ogun State. I may not be able to remember the community now, but this is what we call group marriages in those days, right? Group marriages where a certain number of men are married to a certain number of women. All the women are the wives of those men, all the men are the husbands of those women, all the children born in that relationship belong to everybody in that group, right? If you're from Ogun State, no, if not that you're from Ogun State. If you are from Ogun State and you are knowledgeable about the different cultures of the different communities of that state, or you have understanding about it, you may reach out to me to clarify if this is true. Of course, we've had cases in some communities of eastern Nigeria where a woman could marry another woman. It was not a lesbian relationship, it was not a safe sex relationship. There's a situation where a woman married another woman, and that woman was free to have affairs with her husband and bear children for her, or the woman was free to have affairs with other men there and bear children for the woman, right? So there are different cultures and there are different um, practices when it comes to customary law. So in customary law now, why it is the culture of the bride that actually dictates the validity of the marriage. In statutory marriages, it is what the law says that determines the validity. So the question becomes, what does the law say? We have one marriage act. Oh, I wish today I was with one particular marriage act that I love. Yes, because this this book that I'm holding today is bit fat. The marriage act is not such a big book. It's a small book. It's a small act that you can read up in one day, and that's for people who like reading. It's something you can read up in one day. It's so small that you can sit down and say, "Oh, I want to finish reading this thing in one day," and you'll be done. Yes, what's the big thing in the marriage act, right? It's not even how many sections are in it. Very few sections that you could just read up in one day, and just read up at a go. Maybe you're on a bus ride, you're on a train ride, and you just say, "I think I want to read the marriage act to hear what is it that the marriage act of Nigeria even says." So yes, it's a small book that you can read and get on the other, but you will not understand everything. That's why you need lawyers and you need law educators like I'm doing right now through the family law, your family lawyer to educate you. Now, I went to this book and I tried to bring out the number of pages that actually belong. So the act, and yeah, it is. These are just a few number of pages. Can you see it? That's just a not even. It's not more than this. These are just pages of the Marriage Act. 55 pages, and before you know, you're already done with it. So in the Marriage Act, for example, like I said, this law is the one that regulates the type of marriage. If you choose to have a Marriage Act, it regulates the type of marriage ceremony you can have and the type of marriage that you can have, and it is consistent. It is the same all through Nigeria, unlike customary marriages that differ from one tribe to the other, one ethnic group to the other. Now, when it comes to the Islamic marriage, we also understand that Islamic marriage is simply based on the Quran. So there's consistency in that. There's consistency when it comes to the Quran. Now, when it comes to the Marriage Act and the customary marriage and Islamic marriage, is that when it comes to customary marriage, you start needing people who are experts in that particular custom and tradition to educate you. When it comes to the statutory marriage, you just have the act to make reference to. And when it comes to Islamic marriage, you have the Quran to make reference to. The marriage act, of course, is a civil marriage, so it is registered. You get to have you have your certificate to show that you are married. In Islamic marriages these days, some mosque and some affairs are beginning to create certificates that they issue to the members of that particular mosque or that belong to that particular Islamic sect. So then for customary law, yes, you may not receive a certificate from your father-in-law, from the groom, from the bride's father or from the bride's family to show that you are married to their daughter, or to show or getting such certificate from the groom's family to show that you are married to their son. However, on although many people do not know this, I won't be surprised if you do not know it, because all the people that have interacted with, more than 95% of the people I've interacted with do not know this. You could actually register your customary marriage. You can do so, right? So all you need to do is primarily within 60 to 90 days, within 60 days. All you need to do is once you're married, take your you and your spouse or only one person, go to the customary court within that local government, or let me see, the closest customary court to the place where you had the traditional marriage, to register the marriage, and the registrar of that court will issue you a certificate. What if it's in a situation where some customary court do not even know that they are supposed to issue customary certificates? So they may not go have the booklet, or they may have it and may have never used it, and the rest. Another thing you can do is to go to that local government secretariat. So you go to the local government secretariat of the place where you have the customary marriage to register your customary marriage, and you'll be given a certificate. You know, I have met many Nigerians who wanted to have only a customary marriage, but because they needed to jackpot, because they needed to travel or have the documents to prove that they were married, they decided to go and have a statutory marriage that will give them a federal government certificate. Oh, what ignorance did to them. But then you can always have a customary marriage certificate. I have seen a lot, and I know you can have your customary marriage registered at the customary court closest to the venue where you did the registration, or you can have it registered at the local government where you did your registration. The assumption is that your state is doing the right thing, right? So that's why that some people will say, "Oh, customary marriage does not have certificates. Islamic marriages do not have certificates." Well, that's no longer the position. The position has changed. So you need to understand that the position of the law has changed, right? Now, in Islamic marriage, I know that there's also a kind of payment, like a kind of payment of bride price. I may not be able to remember the name now. Is it, sorry, not my pronunciation may be poor. Is it Sadak that is the name of it, right? And I know for for Islamic marriages, there must be at least two witnesses, which is the same with marriages under the Act. Marriages under the Act is the same thing we call statutory marriage, and is the same thing many Nigerians call court marriage. Now they call it court marriage because of the amount of legal documents they need to sign, the documents they need to feed, the legal processes they need to go through. So they think it's a court process, and so many Nigerians just call it court marriage. Where you can either call it statutory marriage or you call it marriage based on the act. So this particular marriage that is based under the act, like I said, you naturally will get your certificate on it. But for the one is customary marriages and Islamic marriages, you may be required to go and apply for it. So you may want to say, oh, I'm going to apply for it, I'm going to go and get it, and the rest. And there are key differences. So the key differences between customary and Islamic and statutory marriage is what is on your screen right now. So, customary marriage is governed by local traditions and practices, not always registered, but can be registered, right? So, you should always realize that it can be registered. If you have a customary marriage and you have not yet registered it, please go and find a way to register it. You can register it. Another then for Islamic marriage is that Islamic marriage is covered by Islamic principles, and statutory marriage is governed primarily by the Marriage Act, which requires registration and all the legal formalities out there. So I wanted to always realize that in Nigeria there are things that regulate our marriages. So first of all, marriage in Nigeria is regulated by the Marriage Act, that's for statutory marriage. Then the Marriage Act protects both parties' legal rights and their marital responsibilities. And marriages can be either statutory, customary, or Islamic with its own rules, its requirements, and also its process. I would like to say that there is not one form of marriage in Nigeria that is superior to the other. None is superior to the other. They are all equal before the eyes of the law. In fact, those days, foreign embassies or foreign immigration offices and the rest would only want to deal with Nigerians if Nigerians have statutory marriage. They only want to deal with a married couple that have the statutory marriage certificate. And that made a lot of Nigerians to start having statutory marriages, going to marriage registry to have a statutory marriage. But these days, as it stands right now, they are beginning to recognize all the other types of marriages that Nigeria have. They are beginning to recognize our customary marriages and our Islamic marriages because we are now also having legal documents as evidence. Yeah, we are also having legal documents to back these things on. So that is for that. I want to believe that you have learned something significant today. I want to believe that you have learned something very, very important. Like I said, this is your family lawyer, and what I do every time is to try to see how to educate you, how to make you understand Nigeria family law better, and how to have a better understanding of how these things affect you. Every Tuesday, 7 p.m., I am here to educate you and orient you on Nigeria family law. Like I said, it's beyond marriage, it's beyond divorce. If you need to reach out to me, you can use the details on the screen or the details of this particular episode, or you can find a lawyer that is closest to you. Next week, Tuesday, I'll be back. We'll continue our conversation still on the Marriage Act because we want to learn the Marriage Act, understand the Marriage Act, and from there move to something else. So for the next 10 weeks thereabout, we'll be talking about lessons from the Marriage Act. Are you supposed to dress for a statutory marriage? Is there already a laid down vow in the statutory act? We are just going to explore what the law says. And interestingly, these laws are accessible to anyone who wants them. So if you want to know if what I'm teaching is correct, you may just want to go online and search for the Marriage Act Nigeria or Nigeria Marriage Act. You can always get it. There are platforms that have put it there for free where you can get it and be able to learn the Nigeria Marriage Act. You can confirm and cross check if what I'm teaching you is correct, if what I'm sharing with you is correct. So I want to say a very big thank you for joining me this evening. Next week, Tuesday, at the same time, I will be back to share with you something else super amazing. It is I, Alright Eigbe, your favorite family lawyer and counseling psychologist. Remember to share this particular episode with your friends so that they get to learn the same things that you are learning from the ancient and modern city of Ibadan. You rock.